Meek. Written by Poleboy A113. On March 1st, 1992, a coworker at a health insurance office in Sydney brought something into work that none of us had ever seen before. He came in early, before most of the staff arrived, and sat down in the break room with his personal photo book in his hands. He wasn't talking to anyone at first, but people noticed he looked pale and tired, like he hadn't slept in days. When a few of us asked if he was alright, he didn't answer. He just opened the book and pushed it across the table towards us. Inside were photographs, hundreds of them. He said there were over 400 in total, all taken within the last 3 days. The strange part was that he insisted he had never taken any of them. He said that they had appeared in his photo book on their own, without explanation. Every single picture showed the same thing: a distorted face peeking from behind a doorway, staring directly at the camera with wide, unnatural eyes. The figure never moved, never changed expression, and never appeared in a different pose. It was always the same face, the same angle, the same eerie stare. He told us the photos started appearing after he experienced a paralyzing night terror a few days earlier. He said he woke up around 1 a.m., unable to move, with the feeling that someone was standing in the doorway of his bedroom. He could only see the outline at first, but then the face leaned forward into the light. He described it as the most horrific face he had ever seen. Stretched, unnatural, and completely silent. He said he couldn't scream or move until the figure slowly backed into the darkness. When he finally regained control of his body, the room was empty. He thought it was just a nightmare until the photos started showing up. He tried searching for the image online, hoping to find some kind of explanation. He used every search engine available at the time, typed in every description he could think of, and even tried scanning one of the photos to see if it was matching anything. But nothing came up. No similar images, no references, and no sources. It was as if the face didn't exist anywhere else. He said that was the moment he realized something was seriously wrong. Word spread quickly throughout the office. People wanted to see the photos for themselves. Some thought it was a prank. Others thought he was having some kind of mental breakdown. But everyone was intrigued. Once they saw the image, though, the mood changed. A few people laughed it off at first, but most of us felt uneasy. There was something about that face that didn't look fake. It didn't look edited or staged. It looked like something that shouldn't exist. The next day, several employees reported having disturbing dreams. They said they saw the same face from the photo book. Some said it appeared in their hallway. Others said it was standing at the foot of their bed. A few said they woke up unable to move, just like our coworker had described. They all said the same thing. The face didn't speak, didn't move, didn't blink. It just stared. Then the photos started appearing for them too. People would open their own photo books or albums in the morning and find new pictures tucked between the pages. They insisted they had never taken them. The photos were always the same. The face peeking from behind a doorway, staring directly at the camera. Some employees said the background in their photos looked like their homes. Others said the lighting looked like it came from inside their bedroom. No one could explain how the photos got there. The employees started calling the figure Meek. No one remembers who came up with the name, but it stuck. People said the name felt fitting, even though no one could explain why. It was just something everyone agreed on, without discussion. Over the next few weeks, more and more people claimed to have nightmares about Meek. Some said the dreams became more frequent. Others said they started seeing the face in reflections, or in the corner of their eye. A few employees quit their jobs without explanation. The office atmosphere changed completely. People stopped talking about Meek out loud, but everyone knew the story was spreading. Some employees attempted to destroy the photos. They tore them up, burned them, or threw them away. But the next morning, new photos would appear in the same place. Some people said the new photos looked even clearer than before, like Meek was getting closer to the camera. Others said the face looked slightly different each time, as if it was reacting to being noticed. No one knows where Meek came from. No one knows why the image spreads the way it does. Some people believe the photo is cursed, and others think it's a shared hallucination, triggered by suggestion. But the strangest part is that the story itself seems to be the trigger. Once you've heard it, once you've seen the image, once you've imagined that face peeking from behind a door, it becomes easier for your mind to recreate it. Some people forget the story within a day or two. They move on and never think about it again. Others don't. There are people who claim they saw Meek in their dreams after hearing the story. Some say they woke up feeling watched. Others say they found a new photo in their home the next morning, even though they don't own a camera. A few people say they saw the face in the background of old pictures that they had taken years before they even heard the story. Whether any of that is true or not is up for you to decide. But this image is believed to be cursed in many strange ways, and it is quite possible that after you finish reading the story, Meek may visit you tonight in your dreams. Some people say the dreams start the same way every time, with a doorway, a shadow, and the feeling that someone is watching you from just out of sight. If you do see Meek, people say the best thing you can do is not look directly at the face. They say the more attention you give it, the more real it becomes. But again, that's just what people say. Maybe nothing will happen. Maybe you'll forget about the story by tomorrow. Or maybe you'll remember it when you're lying in bed tonight, thinking about the face peeking from behind the door. They say Meek only needs you to look once. After that, it knows where to find you. One Word Story, written by Anthony Naranjo. Have you ever played One Word Story? It's a very simple game. A few people take turns going around to make a sentence. Each person adds one word until the sentence is complete. Then someone says, period, and it's read back. It's actually pretty fun if you play with the right people, but I'm pretty antisocial and only have 1 or 2 friends. They don't like the game as much as I do, so I use a random chat site to play with strangers. It's completely anonymous, so my identity is supposed to be safe. Anyway, it was late afternoon and on a Saturday, and I was in the middle of a game when my apartment went dark. It was probably caused by the weird heat. All week, other tenants in my building had complained about the power cutting short around us. It only lasted a few minutes, but when the power came on, I saw I had been disconnected from the site. When I tried to re-enter, I couldn't. It kept crashing or something, and I kept getting disconnected. I'm easily bored, and was a little more than pissed that I hadn't finished my game. So I took to Google and searched chat room, anonymous, one-word story. I had 23,000 results. I scrolled down the page and tried a few sites out, but either the players weren't very good, or I was led to an anonymous sex chat site. It wasn't until the third page of results that I found something interesting. Microfiction.com. I clicked the heading and entered the site. Then I logged in as a guest. I was really surprised to see how dedicated the site was to an overall simple game. Mystery, parody, anime, music, cartoons, horror, film, and superhero were just a few of the categories that people could use to play one-word story. For no particular reason, I went to mystery first and played a few short games. Then I went to horror, and then music, and to a few others. Eventually I went to take a bathroom break and made sure to bookmark the site so I could visit it in the future. The site was pretty well managed. Under each main heading, for example horror, there were subheadings. These were games being hosted by members. Some games only had a few people in them. Others had 30 or 40. Some were open to anyone, and others were private games that you could only get into if you had a password that the host had sent to you. I played for a few hours, really enjoying myself because everyone here took the game just seriously enough to make each sentence interesting, and also had enough fun to make the whole story funny to read aloud, while still making sense. It was 10 now, and 10:30 was my self-imposed bedtime, so I resigned to play one more game before going to sleep. Going to Mystery for the last time that night, I found a private game. Being a guest on the site, I couldn't message the person to ask to join, and I would have kept looking for a public game, except that the page froze. I refreshed it, and saw that the game had been changed to public, with room for one person. I thought about that, a one-on-one game of one-word story, and I felt excited at the possibility that this guy would be just as good as I was, and we could create something really unique. So I joined. The host, username Doppelganger1221, went first. I appeared on the screen almost instantly. I was impressed with this guy's bravery, as using the letter I in this game usually led to embarrassing sentences in the long run. So I rewarded him with a simple enough word that would keep the sentence going. C. He responded almost immediately with you. This was honestly a very amateur tactic. It would make the game harder to finish, and the unsettling approach was never enough to make me quit. I decided to humor him though, and typed, through. His response was, your. I thought about where the sentence was going, and noticed that my living room window was still open from the afternoon. I typed, window. His response was a period, signaling the end of the sentence. I see you through your window. I chuckled to myself, realizing this guy was a creep. This word refers to a player who tries to make unsettling or disturbing sentences to scare his opponents into leaving the game. He probably had a friend with him, and they were thinking up ways to scare me. I didn't blame them. My sister and I did that last Halloween, when I babysat for my parents. I started the next sentence. You. His reply, are. My reply, not. His reply, safe. My reply was a period ending the sentence. You are not safe. Again, I chuckled as he started the next sentence. I appeared on the screen. I typed am, which was followed by coming. I thought about ending the sentence there as a slight punishment against the guy for not taking the game seriously. Instead, I typed for to see if he would type what I thought he would. He typed you. I was right on the money, and I typed a period. I am coming for you. It wasn't funny anymore, just boring. There was a chat, so I used it to tell the guy to cut the creep stuff. I told him it wasn't funny, and if he didn't cut it out, I would leave the game. He actually replied, "Look out your window." That caught me off guard, but I did what I was told. Across the street, a light post had burned out its bulb, which I hadn't noticed before. It was pretty dark, and I couldn't really make out any shapes. I turned back to the monitor. Doppelganger had typed, I, and I saw in the chat that he had posted another comment. Basically, he was telling me what to write. I was becoming fed up with him, but 10:30 was just about 5 minutes away, so I reasoned to just finish, and did as he asked. I typed have. He typed a. I typed gun. He typed to. I typed your. He typed head. I finished the sentence with a period. I have a gun to your head. I sighed aloud and closed my eyes, stretching at my desk. I just wanted this game to be over. It was my turn, and he had sent me another list of words, so I typed I. He typed am. I typed at. He typed your. I typed window. He typed a period. I am at your window. Reading it aloud, I realized the game was over. We had made the story relate to our first sentence. Out of habit, I read every sentence out loud. I see you through your window. You are not safe. I am coming for you. I have a gun to your head. I am at your window. I finished reading and rested my head against my chair, yawning. I was drowsy and thought about sleeping in my chair when a loud, cracking sound echoed across the empty street outside, and I noticed the crack that was spiderwebbing from the center of my computer monitor. I blinked to full alertness and saw it, the glint of a bullet sticking out of my screen. I turned my head behind me and screamed as I saw someone in a mask staring in through my window. Out of panic, I dashed out of my chair and into my bedroom. I hid in the closet, under a thick pile of dirty laundry, and waited, trying to control my rapid breathing as my eyes adjusted to the uncomfortable darkness. It was a few minutes before I heard soft footsteps. The maniac was in my bedroom. I could see his dark boots and leather pants. He fired the gun against my bedsheets. He must have thought I was hiding in the covers. He rummaged through my drawers and took something that I thought was money or my prescription medicine. I saw him stalk towards my bathroom and fire a shot into the shower. He looked around in there before turning around and looking under my bed. He was almost level with the floor, so I could see his features. He was at least 6 feet, and dressed in all white, except for his mask, which was white, with red tear tracts under the eyes, and a painted set of crooked, beast-like teeth. He seemed to see perfectly in the dark. I could really only see him because his clothes seemed to be darker than the already lightless interior of my bedroom. After what felt like hours, he stood up and walked out of my room. I stayed in my closet all night, eventually falling asleep, covered in my unclean socks and underwear. I smelled horrible in the morning, and the first thing I did was take a shower. As I did, I stepped on the bullet that had torn a hole in my shower curtains. Afterwards, I called the police, who told me to come down to the station. I got ready to go, but couldn't find my keys anywhere. While looking through the drawers of my desk, I complained internally about my monitor being busted. I could still see the site, the chat room, and the game, and took a picture of it with my phone for the police. Now in the kitchen looking for my keys, it hit me that I had kept them in my dresser drawer, and ran into my room to see what the psycho had taken was my keys. I groaned and was about to call my buddy for a ride when I accidentally opened my photo gallery. I was very annoyed with myself until I took another look at the picture I had taken. Something was different in the picture than I had remembered from last night. There was a new line in the chat, a single word, a simple question, a word I had used so many times after a game was over. I never thought that this word would send shivers down my spine, nor turn my blood to ice in my veins. Rematch? The Sugar Room. Written by Eternal Sleep. The first time that I dreamed of Rose, I didn't think it mattered. I'm not the kind of person who reads into dreams. I'm practical, tired, the sort of man who forgets to eat and forgets to water plants until they die quietly. I don't believe in signs, I believe in patterns, and at the time, there wasn't one yet. I was sitting in a chair. That was the first thing that struck me. Not where I was, but how neatly I was positioned. My back was straight, my hands were folded in my lap, feet flat on the floor. I hadn't sat down. I had been placed. The room looked perfect in the way that a catalog looks perfect. A dining space washed in soft pastel light, frozen in a permanent late afternoon. The walls were a gentle pink beige, the kind meant to feel warm and comforting. A vase of flowers sat on a sideboard, every petal flawless. The air smelled like sugar and something faintly floral. In front of me was a small, round table, polished to a mirror shine, and on it sat a white plate. On the plate was a cookie. Across the table stood Rose. He looked like he belonged there in the way that nothing else ever really does. Pink hair, neatly styled, not a strand out of place. A soft apron tied around his waist, dusted with flowers, like he'd been baking for hours. His posture was relaxed, practiced, someone who had learned exactly how to take up space without threatening anyone. His face was gentle, almost kind, but his eyes were wrong. Not glassy, not glowing, just still. They didn't dart or soften. They rested on me with a focus that felt invasive, like hands pressed flat against my chest. "You should eat," he said. His voice wasn't soothing. It wasn't cruel either. It was blunt, factual, like he was stating the next step in a recipe. I looked down at the cookie. A small rose piped into the center with meticulous care. It was too perfect, too deliberate. The smell was overpowering up close. Sweet enough to make my teeth ache. Rose's smile didn't fade, but it tightened, just slightly, like a muscle resisting a cramp. "That's all right," he replied. "You'll be hungry later." I woke up with my jaw clenched and the taste of sugar stuck to the back of my tongue. The dream came back the next night. Identical chair, identical table, identical light that didn't cast shadows the way that it should. No windows, no doors, just the suggestion of a room, carefully arranged to imply safety. This time the cookie was different. It was still round and still iced, but cracked down the center. The icing was uneven, smeared in places like someone had rushed. Rose noticed me staring. "I fixed it," he said. "It's still good." I studied him more closely then. The flower on his apron never shifted. His hair didn't move, not even when he tilted his head. He smelled sweet, but underneath it was something metallic, something old. "Where am I?" I asked. "Somewhere safe," he answered immediately. The words felt rehearsed. I laughed, short and nervous. The sound didn't carry. It died way too quickly, like the room had swallowed it whole. Rose didn't react. "You're wasting time," he said. I pushed back my chair. The scrape of wood against the floor was loud, echoing way too sharply. The moment my foot touched the ground, the room blurred and folded in on itself. I woke up gasping. After that, it became a routine. Every night, I have the same dream. Every night, Rose waits. The cookie changed each time. Chocolate dipped, soft and pale, iced so thick that it sagged under its own weight. Once it was shaped wrong, lopsided, like it had been made by hands that were tired or angry. Rose spoke less as the nights went on. His patience wore thin in quiet ways. Shorter sentences, tighter posture. His smile slowly stopped reaching his eyes. "You'll starve," he told me one night. I asked him what would happen if I didn't eat. He stared at me for a long time, his gaze heavy. When he finally spoke, his voice was colder. "Everyone eats eventually." The room started to change once I started paying attention. From the chair, everything looked perfect, but when I stood and walked around closer to the walls, the illusion cracked. The pastel paint wasn't smooth. It was peeling in thin strips, curling away to reveal something dark and swollen beneath. The flowers on the sideboard were stiff, their stems brittle, and their scent cloying up close. The floorboards were scratched, not randomly, parallel lines like fingernails. When I reached out to touch the wall, my finger burned. I woke up instantly, heart racing, my skin tingling as if shocked. The next night, Rose was already standing when I arrived. "You're not supposed to do that," he said. "Do what?" "Look," he said. The cookie on the plate was gray and crumbly, like ash pressed into a familiar shape. "I just want to understand," I told him. Rose leaned forward, palms flat on the table, up close. I could see the cracks in his posture, the tension in his jaw, the way that his fingers dug into the wood. "There is nothing to understand," he said. "There is eating, or there is hunger." People started dying, heart failure in their sleep, choking, internal injuries with no external cause. The articles mentioned nightmares, vivid dreams, waking up starving. I stopped sleeping, because it didn't matter. Rose found me anyway. This time, Rose wasn't there. I searched. The oven behind the counter, the kitchen smelled wrong up close. Sweetness layered thick enough to hide rot. When I opened the oven door, heat washed over my face, dry and suffocating. Inside were trays stacked high, bones ground into fine flour, teeth mixed into dough, jewelry melted into the metal. Something pink and fibrous caught in the grate that I realized, too late, had once been part of someone's mouth. "You weren't invited back here." Rose stood behind me, closer than he'd ever been. His apron was stained now. The flour on his hands had darkened into something sticky and red. "They were hungry," he said calmly. "I helped." I woke up choking, my stomach cramping like it had been hollowed out. The next cookie was still warm. It bled when I touched it. "You see now," Rose said. "Everything here is real." I asked him what would happen if I never ate. For the first time, his voice sharpened with real anger. "You don't get to refuse forever," he snapped. "You're wasting what I gave you." The final dream was smaller. The room felt compressed. The walls cracked open, and the pastel skin hanging in strips to reveal the rot beneath. The table was gouged with nail marks. The air was thick, heavy. On the plate sat a heart. Human, whole, and still beating. I stood up, slowly, backing away. Rose crossed the room within seconds, grabbed my jaw with hands far stronger than they looked. His composure was gone now, replaced with raw irritation. "You should have eaten when you had the chance," he said. He forced my mouth open. The heart was hot, alive against my tongue, beating once, twice, before he shoved it down my throat. His hand clamped over my mouth as I gagged and thrashed. "Don't waste it," he hissed. "I made this for you." I woke up screaming. The pain didn't fade. My chest burned, sharp and tearing, like something inside me had finally given up. I collapsed on the floor, gasping, clawing at my shirt. The last thing I felt was my heart rupturing under the strain. They said that I died in my sleep. That night, somewhere warm and perfect, and sweet-smelling, Rose set the table again. He smoothed his apron, fixed his hair, and placed a fresh cookie on the plate. He waited. Someone would be hungry soon. Nuclear Ash. Written by James Kelly, 15. I stand in a dark room. It is very large, and I can barely see the black outlines of the walls. Around me are golden cages which hang from the ceiling by long chains. Peering into them, I see the most peculiar objects. Much like the strange ornate cages, gold glints through many of the bars. There are crowns, golden bars, scepters with emeralds and other gems embedded in their hilts, golden necklaces and lockets amongst others. One has bronze weighing scales. Other cages have bones in them. I see one near my head has a skull in it, which makes me jump. Just as I am acquainting myself with my bizarre surroundings, a bright light comes on before me. I hear a beeping and see a logo. It's called a digital on-screen graphic, and every broadcaster has one, but this one I don't recognize. It looks like a star with a shadow cast across it, and it has strange characters that look like hieroglyphics on it. Over it, a live countdown begins. It is on 14. I hear screaming coming from the TV, alongside the beeping. 11. The screen crackles and I see static for several seconds. Demonic laughter comes from the screen. 8. What on earth is happening? 6. My heart is pounding. 4. I stare in disbelief. Where am I? 2. 1. The image swaps to another. It is the seal of the United States. I am a Brit, but I've lived in Florida for 6 years, and I consider America my home now. But what exactly is happening? This must be some kind of emergency broadcast. Then, an image appears. It is the President of the United States. President Mugwell sits behind his desk in the Oval Office. He looks straight at the camera, and strangely smiles. Our eyes seem to lock, but I feel he is looking directly at me, into my soul. He wears a black suit, and his tie is as straight as ever. But the red and white polka dot style seems unusually cheerful for such a seemingly somber scene. I notice he is wearing a silver ring that I've never seen him wear before. It has a skull and 2 bones on it, and it complements his hair. His blue eyes have a striking quality, but more remarkable are his white teeth. They are blindingly flashy and shine brighter than a Mexican summer sun. Then he speaks. My fellow Americans, last night we came under attack. The screen turns static, and the transmission comes through again faintly. The message is not entirely audible, but I hear him talk more. We know what we must do. This is war. We wish this day would never come, but our enemy has refused all negotiations, and now we realize that we should have acted sooner. We will not make the same mistake of mercy or diplomacy again. We will strike our enemy's cities with the full force of our arsenal. The screen fades out and then comes back again. God bless America. Suddenly, I'm no longer in that dark, strange room. I'm standing in a city far away. The sun is beating down upon me. I am surrounded by buildings. Some are made of stone and clay brick. Others are more modern apartment types, with scaffolding and double-glazed windows. It's a strange city, a mix of modern and old. I see people in all variety around me. They are young and old, healthy and fat, ragged and in suits. As the crowd jostles past, I see cars and people riding on donkeys. A young man in a white thobe and sun-beaten leather sandals leads a goat to a market by a rope tied to its neck. Merchants and vendors haggle at stalls. Customers stop and look at an array of spices, clothes, fruits, and other goods. A woman laughs whilst talking to her husband and shelters her daughter with her arm. as the crowd jostles past. People walk past me, beside me and around me, but they never make eye contact or look at me. Something isn't right. I can sense it. I look up at the sky and see a jet fly past, faster than any I've ever seen before. Suddenly, I'm inside a white clay house. There are no windows, just bolted wooden doors. Elaborate Persian carpets cover areas of the tiled floor. In the center of the room is a table with a blue and white patterned porcelain Mayping vase on it. It must be the home's prized possession. A very loud sound, which is almost like the crack of a whip, comes from the walls and makes me cover my ears. I see a family screaming and cowering together under the table. None of them seem to notice me, apart from the young daughter who goes quiet and turns pale as she stares, wide-eyed at me. It's as if she's seen a ghost. Helplessly, I just stare back. Blinding white light and the sound of thunder fills the room. Then suddenly I am inside another building. This one is more modern. I see a window, and through it, I see a nuclear mushroom cloud on the horizon. The glass is shattered. The sky is blood red. I'm on the outskirts of the city, and while the room seemed to have survived the initial blast, the place is very hot. I can't feel it in the way you'd think, but I just know. I can somehow sense it. I see an old man lying dead on the floor. Two adult men, perhaps his sons, are desperately trying to help him. They are talking to each other, and whilst I can't speak in their language, I know what they're saying. They think he has passed out from shock. It's no use, I tell them sadly. They can't hear me. Then one starts screaming, and I see his skin has turned red and is blistering. They are both screaming. Screaming in howls of agony also come from outside the window, and peering out, I see buildings on fire and people running about the streets. Oxen and sheep flee. There is crying and hysteria. Cars are overturned. People lie, seemingly dead, on the road as others rush past. I don't think it was an intercontinental ballistic missile. I'd seen a plane fly by. It must have been a nuclear strike from an air-launched cruise missile or a ballistic missile. The plane had looked like a B-2 bomber. Politics hasn't exactly been a diplomatic success lately. The China-Taiwan War of last year led to hundreds of thousands of deaths, and the US's withdrawal from NATO in 2027 and the Russian capture of Kiev in late 2026 have caused ripples of panic across the globe. But I never imagined that events would come to this. I stand in horror, staring at the burning calamity that is everything. Then it's done. I am staring at the ceiling of my bedroom. My bedroom. The sunlight is coming through the curtains. I can't move my body. Then I realize it's sleep paralysis. I'd been here a million times before. I realize I need to sleep more. I allow myself to drift off. I gasp. My temple is throbbing. It was all just a dream. I check my iPhone. There is no signal, but I see the time is 7:03 a.m. I get up and go to the bathroom. I stare at my face in the mirror. That was a dream I don't want to have again. Sleep paralysis runs in my family. I got it from my late mother. She used to say that dreams held the key to visions and could predict the future. I never really believed that, but she had had strange dreams. Before COVID, she dreamt of an outbreak of a virus that came from Russia and caused a panic. Her dream had been intensely vivid, and she had told me about it in 2019. She had seen men in masks and people being tested in drive-in stations where tents had been set up. She claimed in her dream that people were given a test that gave a result on a device that looked like a test cassette that was either a red line or a blue line, and the red one meant that you were infected. It was strange. She said that powers ran in our family, and I could see the future in dreams as well. She also said that dreaming was a gateway to astral projection, and that when you have sleep paralysis, You know you've been astral projecting. I've never really believed it, but like her, I've always struggled with insomnia and sleep paralysis. Still feeling sick, I dress myself and prepare for work. I splash cold water on my face. After brushing my teeth and flossing, I go down into the kitchen to start my day. I open the window to let the morning breeze in. Cool Floridian air fills the room. The sky is a beautiful deep blue morning hue. Palm trees sway along the gravel driveway, and I hear the dawn chorus of American robins. It will be a beautiful day. I think about that strange dark room with the TV and wonder where it was, and what the significance of the objects in the cages were. It was some strange place in my mind. I know that Wilhelm Steckel and Sigmund Freud both associated skulls with death and annihilation. I get a glass of tap water as well as a carton of milk from the fridge, which I down with several gulps. I plonk myself down on my favorite grey velvet sofa and relax. I look at my service medals proudly in their display case across from me and close my eyes. After a few minutes, I get my breakfast. As I'm eating, the TV screen crackles open. There is a second of static, and then I hear the national emergency broadcast. The beeping continues as the logo of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security appears on the screen. A female voice begins to read a message. This is an emergency broadcast. This is not a drill. Please remain in your homes. At 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time this morning, devices were detonated across cities in America. Chicago, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, and Washington, D.C. have been attacked with a series of detonations. These come shortly after EMP strikes damaged the Northwest electricity grid. Martial law has been declared. The FBI and NSA have created a joint task force and are working with the National Guard to apprehend any responsible parties. I repeat, if in the vicinity of the affected areas, please remain in your homes. The Army has cordoned off the perimeters of your areas. I repeat, please remain in your homes. The President will now give an emergency broadcast. The screen flashes, and the White House logo appears on the screen for several seconds. Then, an image appears of the President behind the presidential desk. He is wearing his gray hair with its trademark parting. He is also wearing a more formal, plain dark tie, and I don't see a ring on his hand. His left hand sits over his right on his desk, as if intended as a gesture of respect, but there's a universal glimmer in the depths of his eyes. He looks directly at the camera. My fellow Americans, this morning we came under attack. We are working on finding any surviving perpetrators, but the origins of the attack are obvious. We will not stand back while our country is attacked. We will strike back. He gently smiles, and I see his shiny teeth.